All right, I'll call the August 25th, 2025 board review meeting to order. Roll call, trustee Bratton.
Here.
Trustee Brooklyn.
Here.
Trustee Brochus.
Okay, here.
Yeah, I thought this sounded like. Okay. Trustee Paul Mikowski. Trustee Borkart.
Here.
Trustee Kettlelader.
Here.
And President Langfeld. All right, next is confirmation of appropriate board of review and open meeting notices. This was published in the paper in August 7th, and then we had the notice on our website also. Next, we'll select a chairperson for board of review. Are there any nominations?
I'll nominate Bill.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we'd like to select a vice chairperson. Any nominations? Or I guess, Bill, did you accept your nomination?
Sure.
I think. Anybody else want to?
Anybody else trained?
All right, vice chair nominee in case we need to come back. I'll accept.
I'll second that.
All right. Well, I don't know if you want that, Bill. We'll turn it over to you to continue.
Verify that the village has an ordinance for confidentiality of income and expense information provided by the assessor under the state law.
Village ordinance 7.02D is our ordinance that we skipped over.
Yeah, we need to go back for sure to 6.
Yeah.
You gotta go back for sure for what?
6. We gotta make sure 6 is, we should put it on the record that.
Oh, okay, yep, sorry.
No, that's
I
right.
was looking at a different. Verify at least one board member has a mandatory training requirement, so it is an annual now. So at least one board member has to be trained annually as of 23, I think.
Yeah.
And 2 of us. Okay.
So you, okay.
I am trained.
Yep, I did an in-person training earlier this year, and then Bill watched the video, so.
Okay, now verify that the village has an ordinance for confidentiality of income and expenses information provided to the assessor under state law, Wisconsin statute 770.47.7.3.
And yes, we have village ordinance 7.02D.
Okay. Discussion action to approve the minutes from the regular meeting held on August 26, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. So minutes are approved. Discussion and action to approve the minutes from the meeting held on May 12th, 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of May 12th.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Finally, discovery of annual assessment report by accurate assessor. Finally, discovery of annual assessment report by accurate assessor. I don't know really what that.
That would be her. She
Yep.
would say yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, great. Receipt of the assessment roll by the clerk from the assessor.
Did you get shipped the roll? Otherwise, we have an electronic version that I'll.
As you say, they normally bring a binder.
We normally do. I find that boards have liked it recently to do searching electronically if you're trying to find a personal number and address. Ship it if there's any changes, so you have a more updated roll to keep here afterwards. So we have it. I'm going to email it to you as the delivery,
Okay.
and then we'll mail you a final one. Stuff. I don't think we had any changes since the original roll anyway.
Okay.
We've checked with the attorneys at a digital roll counts as delivery of the roll, and then we'll ship you a final one so you can retain a physical binder here.
So the,
But if you'd like to look at it, I can pass my computer around. It's a PDF. And I can pull out.
There's a link on it.
Yeah, so I sent everyone the link to your website.
Yep.
So we can all,
Yeah, it's under the,
or it's on their website.
Next year, we'll make sure to have a physical roll because if you're gonna do a market update, you might have people that also want to look at it and that'll be easier for them at that point. But when it's a maintenance year, sometimes that. But next year, we'll bring the physical roll with us.
So at this time, we can review the assessment role and perform statutory duties, examine the assessment role, correct description or calculation errors, add or omit property, and eliminate double assessed property. So,
There's no omitted or errors, so you guys just.
Yeah. So if we can take time at this time to, everyone want to pull it up and look at it or?
yep.
Just for the record, I did look through and checked all the, like the new subdivisions where like last year, maybe they were in process of building or it was a vacant lot and they pulled a permit. So I verified all those that they have updated assessments. And then I did some like where people pulled building permits or commercial stuff. I checked to make sure that those were adjusted.
Otherwise, the stuff stays the same, right?
Maintenance year, we maintain. the
Yeah,
level
that's
of-
what,
I know. We always check on permitted work every year because those would be maintenance year more physical attributes that change, we would adjust. Generally, if something was completed, we would still reduce that value by the ratio because we would want full value
Sure.
of something when nothing is.
so Bobby, thanks for doing it, that's key part.
Yeah.
That's what here,
I have one good question. Like I see one has sold, okay, so it was a property and the value was the same, and then now they sold it and they bought it for a couple $100,000 more, but the value still remained in the last sale.
Yeah.
Is that normal?
Yep, because unless something changed for them to sell, finish out a basement, renovate a kitchen, things like that, it is not a market year, so the market, like the sale, does not impact.
Oh.
Every sale
Next
is
year it
reviewed.
will.
So next year then it would go to the value of the sale. Probably.
If it was a valid sale,
Okay.
That would be an arm's sale or?
yep, arm's length was publicly marketed,
Okay.
so on and so forth. If we find, so there's two steps to the sale verification process in general. One is, was it a valid sale? Things of that nature. Step two is, will we be using it for our ratio analysis? Because we're looking for the market fact. So let's say, house sold as it was before, that's it. And if it was a valid sale, that would also be used for a ratio. Now, if somebody to sell finished out a basement, renovated a kitchen, we're talking now market plus something, and that's not telling us the market. So it might be a valid sale, that still gets that to the sale, but it might not be something we're using to judge what home's at because now they've had a different attribute that's been changed on it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes it goes the opposite, if it's like foreclosure. They
Oh,
pay a lot under market value.
And generally those are sheriff, like sales. And
Yeah.
The valid sale that was under compulsion.
Oh, okay.
same thing, like if I sold my property to my kids, then I gave them the
Not
great discount
market.
on it, that's not arm's length.
Because of fire, it was not a public market.
Okay.
Truly had one earlier this week where it was listed as a pre-listing, so we could see it on MLS. However, somebody bought it before it actually hit the market because their daughter lived across the street and they just offered them whatever before that baby was born. So that was, in one way, we could have looked at it and said, well, it was going to be listed, but never took to the actual market. It didn't ever, it's never fully published. So that was.
Interesting.
Bobby, the other thing I'm going to be sending you in an email is our PR 130, which is that report of any changes from the original role. So anything that would have been changed during the open period, we'll list everything out. Parcel number, the address, and any communication there.
Okay. Do you know, did many people make open book appointments or?
So the other thing to include, we'll also talk about those things. We do a report. We call it our annual assessor report. If you guys are okay, I'd like to just read a little bit of it so you can kind of get an idea of what we did this year. Your current ratio is 70%. We did our field work completed at least July 3rd. We do a real estate review, so sometimes things get flagged of We just need to check on things. Should it impact the value? Should it not? Does it need additional research? That was all completed on July 9th. July 11th is when we sent the initial real estate value notices of anything that would have been changed. Generally, I think in the statute it says 500. We've been indicated anything at $100 or more of change, we will issue them a statement change. Open book started July 17th. Any changes then that we changed during the initial open book period, we mailed out on August 7th. Then today, August 25th, during the board review. We visited 93 parcels. We reviewed 161 permits, 4 permits, so that we might have also reviewed permits that just weren't completed in prior years, but 161 2024 permits. There was 138 2024 sales. Of those 138 sales, 84 of them were usable. So again, they weeded out by sheriff deed or wasn't publicly marketed, not for sale, so on and so forth. Only one person signed up for an open book appointment. But even though there's one appointment, 18 residents reached out to us, residential, and 1 commercial property owner reached out to us. We do a full parcel review audit we did that on July 16th, the fieldwork audit on July 14th. The note that I have on here is that next year will be your interim market update, so it will be a busier year. We've seen things absolutely pick up, so I would expect cases next year, commercial and residential, and I can get more feedback on that. Otherwise, then I believe our contract goes till 2020, and the other 2 years then will be maintenance years. So again, maintaining that level of from next year.
So we're at 70%, so,
Your auto ratio.
well, yeah, definitely. Well, that's my word. Do you bring it up to 100%?
That's the goal. Yeah.
Boy, it's not gonna be a fun year.
And for those people that reached out to you, like were you just able to answer the questions or did you have to adjust anything?
It's a mix. A lot of times it's people with questions. A lot of times I find that if there was permitted work, they didn't answer our letter, they didn't answer our phone calls, and we had to make our best. Our information on the best information. And we were wrong. They're noticing, hey, well, this isn't what happened. A lot of times people then will let us know. Hey, we had a basement renovation and we had to estimate off of the permit and other information. Hey, 50% of your basement got done. And fine. Well, only 25% of it, or hey, it was really just foundation issues that were set up. No value was added. So a lot of times when there's clean up there, it could be people just don't understand and then educate, or then we have to change because the new information was presented.
I was gonna say, I took a number of calls from people in the newer subdivisions and they're like, oh, my neighbors is assessed at this and their house is the same. Like, why is mine so much higher? And
New construction,
Yeah.
a lot of times it's a lot of new construction people. Yep.
It's hard to answer that, because they're all Viridian.
Right.
I'm curious.
It's the value of the house as it January 1st, right?
Right, and so I generally would direct them to their phone number. The one person I did send the Department of Revenue has a good handbook about this, and it says in there, like in bold, like, a big mistake homeowners make is comparing their assessed value to their neighbors. So.
Yeah, I can see that, but I guess what I'm saying is, when you do track housing, if someone has, Cape Cod that's 1,700 square feet, and down the block, there's another one, 17. You would wonder, unless there's something material in there that they upgraded, that they should be pretty much the same. Right? It's the same builder, same
Think so.
material, same lot size, same neighborhood. And I don't know how big of a difference some of those things were.
Well, and so I looked, and to me, it was fairly minimal. I don't know
Oh.
why.
Well, I know what I find too, and this is merely just kind of guessing, is some people take themselves to like one property. Well, we're going to look at all properties.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
there's some variance of what people have purchased at. Somebody bought it 225 a square foot. The next person bought it 275 a square foot for whatever reason. So they might be somewhere within that ballpark, but they're looking at that one.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's what I brought up too, was sale price. And I said, I'm sure your assessed value is much less than you paid for your house. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like,
Then generally, if you bought it too, we're gonna adjust that ratio, your value at the new construction and you purchased it, we'll take that minus the ratio and that, whatever that ends up
Oh,
being
okay.
is by the state statutes, the most appropriate value. So regardless of how that compares to your neighbor.
Yeah, no, that
Okay, that
seems
makes
fair.
sense, yeah.
What are we going to 100%?
Next year. When do you typically do your board split? This time of year or did it?
It was earlier, but the last couple years it was later. In the revalue, we did one in 2018. We were later in the year for
And
sure.
that ends up being best. We do have people that really want to hit the statutory, but the state doesn't really even look at things until May at best. So you're kind of hitting an imaginary target. And we communicate as much as we can. Because ultimately your 100% is dependent on it, right?
Mhm.
So the later in the year, the better we are able to,
Right.
if we're doing our analysis and we're very different than the state, it allows us time to communicate. What are you looking at? Why are you seeing there's some discrepancy?
Yeah, the last time I was on the board when this room was packed and the line was out the door.
Well, and kind of to Bobby's point, we have a lot of educational pieces that, you know, you and Kyle are the coordinator is, for next year, we'll talk about how do you best communicate with residents, how do we best educate them, so that we have as much as we can to empower those residents. That I think you were referencing that property ownership guide or guide.
Yeah,
Ownership. We
yep.
reference that. It's formatted with the state approved notice letter. And what's funny is that it says, here's a link. It's paper copy, but I find that to be a really great and useful tool.
Did you just think of how expensive houses are now, then you add 30% to that as an increase? It's a shocker.
But I think to a lot of people, so this market, it's not, you know, reflective of the market. A lot of people will.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. And I think you're right, education is the key. And then having them understand what they need to bring to win a case. Because it's a pretty high standard and you just hear, well, my house can't be worth this much. There's no way I'd be able to sell. Well, that's not gonna, you need to have your comparables and everything else. There's a high standard.
Yeah. Pretty reasonable. To me, I break it down with respect to the property owner and the board. You know, if you have something that you can provide us, love to see it so that
Yeah.
we can take care of it before it gets to this stage. And if not, that's the point of the whole third time we talk about our stuff.
Are you gonna visit every house?
I don't believe our contract has that. It would depend on the contract.
That wasn't that the last time I was, I thought they stopped by everybody.
I was gonna say, I don't think it's and going to your home one.
Okay,
There's normally an interior inspection or an exterior inspection, or neither, and they're going off of the property record cards, as I said, assume that they were graded correctly and then updated as
is that the one we're doing, the third option?
most likely.
Oh, that might not be so bad.
I will say, because most often people, you know, one of the things most commonly noted is if you have an appraisal, right? And most often I get, well, they were just in my house less than you guys are. I had 2 people this year, you know, that were dead set on their appraisal, and one I had said, well, a lot of times like looking at the data, because I mean, if it's for a bank appraisal, it's technically not priority item, because they're just looking to meet their regulations, but I like looking at the data, at least if there's something in the data that maybe is a discrepancy. And one, I said, well, your square footage is different. And it was an interesting house as far as roof line and things like that. You know, again, they were here was less than good. I don't have a problem adjusting, but adjust your value. He said, hold on, let me remeasure it. So we spent a couple days texting because he was wanting to make sure he knew the proper way to measure. And he called me back and he said, no, actually, yours was correct. The appraisal was wrong. And I really enjoyed it. And then I had another case who, unfortunately, they did file in time but never got this, so I didn't have time to look at in advance, but we still had the case. That said, again, this was the right value. This is the appraisal. They were just in there. Again, it was another bank appraisal. So, but I was trying to look at the data, but his whole thing was his condition is poor, his condition is poor, his all these issues, and you know, this appraisal is right now. I'm looking at it and go, the appraisal says everything's average. So, and ours said that yours was below average on some things,
Yeah.
right? So it seemed by his testimony that we were more correct, but again, just all the procedure, all right, so you're saying this is the most appropriate document, you're testifying, no, that isn't. And I said, well, but this says all of this is accurate. And he went into, well, I wanted a good rate, so I was concealing part of it so that they couldn't see this and they couldn't see that. All right, well. So I would say that this would be a good reflection of the data and then not a good reflection of maybe adjustments in comp, so therefore the value, you know, so. I do find that when people come to me, it's not that we're trying to make it difficult, but I do hear that stuff often, so we have to still approach it. And technically, unless that appraiser comes to testify, it's hearsay. So we still look at it.
Was that right?
If somebody's essentially saying this is the value, so have to be asked questions about that. But I think looking at the data.
A lot of appraisers won't do it. When you hire them, they'll say, I won't contest it.
The other thing too that I really hope residents, because I don't want them to waste their time or resources and money, is to your point, I think you had said it's as of the first of the year. You had mentioned that. So a lot of times we'll get an appraisal, and if we're here in August, an appraisal's going to last 3 to 6 months. It all happened after the first of the year, and it's not a good indication of value. They can, if they want to seek out an appraisal, do an as of date, as of the first, so that they can utilize. So we're going to be looking at 2025 and 2024 sales. If it's been since 2018, since you did a last reval, we're going to go to try to get as much information as possible, most likely to maybe 3 years, but 2 years. Most often, the 2024 will have a time adjustment. Most likely we'll have to see what we're going to do at that point. But so if they use 2026 sales, that's not something we can take into consideration, unless it's such a unique property that a 2026 sales would be comparable, but most often that's not. Will say to your point, if we're not visiting every property, market updates I love, because that's when people are telling you about it.
Yeah.
Letting us know those things. You'll see a lot of changes because it's helping us cleanse that tap. Not able to get in for one reason or another. Or maybe when we started and we're taking the information from the last assessor, maybe something just went missed in prior years. It might not change the value, but it helps us get your records updated.
So you have stubborn residents that don't want to talk to you, don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, the majority of it. Which I understand, but, you know, but we have started a lot more initiatives this last year trying, so we have to go with the best information available, how to get more. And I know assessors can't do a full reevaluation. You're doing an interim markup, which is a version of a reevaluation because the ability to get in enough houses just. It's so much anymore. But people don't necessarily watch it in.
Right, no, I know that. And didn't we send out a letter 5 years, 6 years ago when it happened saying, hey, guess what? Appraisers are coming through. And
Yeah, I think the letter, you set up a date. I remember letting the person in. They walk through the house and everything like that.
right,
Yeah, I think it was where you called them to set up an appointment or something, if I remember it.
that could be.
We have had some municipalities reach out to us because the DOR reached out to them and said, we really need to start doing these things. We've gotten more requests for that in the last couple of years. Like I said, much more than we've ever seen with pricing to see if we would do externals or internals.
And that 70%, is that kind of an average, or do you think the majority of the houses are at that?
I mean, that's just overall, commercial and residential, your overall.
Yeah, so let's say maybe there's half that's at 100%, half that's at 45%, or?
I don't think it's really at 100%.
Oh,
Yeah, I would say a lot of times you'll find it by style, or just the difference of commercial versus residential. We'll have their own, next year we'll tell you your major classes, which most often are residential and commercial, and what individually those increases were. So, you know, if if it's 35 for residential and 45 for commercial, or whatever that average per class is. And then, so for example, what I found, like, in 1 year, Bayside, which is on the lake there, they had an average of like 18% of an increase, and bi-levels and tri-levels went up 20. It was significantly different. And I was trying to understand why there. They said because values had gone up so much, people wanted into this neighborhood. They were buying the lower priced homes, which were those bi-levels and tri-levels, which were the least sought after traditionally, but increased the buying pool, which increased the percentage of which people were buying at. So unfortunately, that is what that, if you own one of those types of homes, most likely we're going to see a tax increase because it increased so significantly at that time. But they do an market update. So hopefully if that's not the trend, that'll even itself out over time. So I guess as an example of that as a class of home, that's what we were seeing as a differentiator. You might see it by style, you might see it depending on how the neighborhood's broken out. Generally there's, as not every community is very unique, and it also depends how long it's been between market updates. But if you're at 70 now and the market traditionally has continued to go up, you'll see some pretty big jumps.
Yeah, no, I'm 30%, you think, well, that's a big jump.
Well, it'll take more than 30% to get it average, plus than whatever this year is. So 40 plus, you know,
But if everybody goes up 40%, you know.
Well, yeah, it doesn't affect taxes
Yeah.
necessarily, because you're right, the value, it still goes in, but there's always that where mine goes up 200,000, someone else's go up 100,000, I'm paying more. Yeah, if everybody just went up exactly 35 or 40%
Yeah.
for tax reasons, we'd all be the same, but.
and that's what I've heard a lot of people just get misguided information not from us, but like I heard a lot more in the past. The only way to get a value change is the board. No, please contact us or open talk that at the time. Because if there is a discrepancy, but what I will say is we have to use sales to support a change. So even if something's neighborhood may be different, there might be a reason for that, but for us to support a change, we do have to use certain metrics to look at. I find that most often it's pretty frustrating. Except, and I get it. But I'll do what I can to help support them within that range. Most often it'll be a data update that we can make. We had one community that said, can't you just automatically bump people down because terror appreciation? I went, oh.
Unfortunately, most houses, there's an appreciation, not a depreciation.
Because we assume you're maintaining. Like,
Right.
thing. And so when we say something is average, it's average for the age of the home. So the confusion of, hey, if it's 2025 low house average, but yet 1950 house is also listed average low, this shouldn't be the same category, you know? So, that house might have a lot of wood rot. That would be normal about that age. And we don't expect that you're doing that very often. Now, if it's causing water issues and now you have water damage, that's completely. It should be.
But is that really gonna change your assessment?
It could, yeah. Water damage, like if, what I hear a lot of times too is like concrete settling, so also you get a lip at your step or a lip at your driveway. That alone isn't gonna change it. If now it's pushing at your foundation and now you're getting more cracking in water, that if you were to sell it, would be something that generally would impact the value, depending on the situation.
I had cracking in water and I just fixed it. I mean,
Like, but again, if it's I have an 1880s farmhouse style home,
Oh.
that would be their foundations water more common. That would be more common. Now, some people do that for 80s home,
yeah,
less common. You fix it, you maintain it,
right.
right?
Okay.
And sometimes people tell us this happened, but they fixed it, so it's no longer an issue. So unfortunately,
Well, you're right. You need. Fix it.
But most often people don't think I better call the assessor. I haven't fixed this yet. Right off the first person you think of. That's why doing the market updates is helpful. That's people who call us and tell us about, are able to make some updates. Because they're comparing themselves, right? Like, why is mine the same as theirs? And ours, well, we don't, maybe don't know. Let us know. Yeah, maybe it's what we would expect, and that's how. Oh, we can mention that.
Speaking of that, on the assessment roll here, it doesn't show, it doesn't state when the building was built.
Yeah, the roll's not gonna show that, it's just gonna show value.
Yeah, that's just cool. That's, yeah, again, that's.
Our website will, so anyone can see anyone's property on our
Over.
website. So if you go to accurateassessor.com, kind of, yeah, I just going to it. That
Yeah, this one?
Hawaiian property search, Cross Plains as a municipality.
We'll put my address.
It brings up your property record. It should bring up photo sketch if we have it, and then your date, age, site,
That's cool.
attributes, attached, detached. Again, a lot of times permit history doesn't have a lot if we weren't given it. Sales recently. And the bottom will do the breakout. And this updates live, so like next year, let's say we give you our initial roll, and I updated somebody's value during open book, this page will automatically update. The roll is not going to get updated until board closes. This goes live, which is nice. So if somebody needs proof, we still send them a new notice, but at least they could see that if they refresh their screen after I made that change. Next year too, if you want to go click on the other tab that was our page. Right now, that green roll book sales analysis. So next year, our sales will be posted on there as well. So you can see on the right hand side the sales analysis. So we had a market update for. With that plus sign. We'll get sales in there. Is that person number, address, date of sale. We'll highlight. So let's say for the ones that are in red, it'll list remodel. Those would be ones that sold, but we may not have used that towards our ratio analysis that has some sort of remodel associated with that plan. There could be outliers in here too that got kicked out of the analysis for some reason or another, but at least if they were questioning, am I ballpark, am I super out of ratio or not ratio out of alignment? Most often we're going to be looking at things on that far right hand column, the price per square foot.
Sure.
And again, this isn't something we've, made up. This is the sale itself, just is what somebody paid for it. But at least there's some information, bed, bath count, the grade, the condition grade, prior year, current year, or this, I should say. This is what I was saying. For Paul Joseph, they just gave you the parcel number, the address, and the family. But is it the same style? Like they at least have ranches, split levels, things like that. So all that information, so you have to. 50,000 sales.
What's an MSS and MMS?
Modern single story versus a modern multi-story. So your modern single stories are essentially a ranch. Just if you think of, actually, you'll see a basic single story, which is kind of your 1950s ranch. You'll see a ranch, which is more like a 1980s and 90s single stories. And then the modern multi-stories, you start getting more architecture to it. So that really should be its own space. And normally those new constructions you're going to see as modern single stories. We only started publishing our sales this year. So next year we've learned we need to put like a key out there so that you can easily identify what the heck that stuff means. So even if you go to the top, I think some of it's easy to identify, like your street, but SFLA is, the average square feet. FBLA is your finished basement living area. That's not a rec room. That would be something that has a walkout or an egress, and that will count towards your gross living area. There's value in rec space, it's just gross living area. BD bedroom, the full bath, HB half bath. That letter grade speaks more to architecture, so something that's on the base level of C. You might have a little bit more C plus than larger in there. Condition though, that C condition, desirability, utility.
I see the dollar amounts there and coming through and there's not any of those.
Yeah, most of them 5, 6 on the lunch and 3, 7.
Okay, over here, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you gotta look over. Yeah, there was one for 170, but everything else,
Okay.
370,
505.
390, 6, something, yeah.
So looking at the building description, this says minus 60 plus.
Yeah, you're looking.
So that would be at age of construction, something I look at C plus, it would be kind of more builder grade architecture style, maybe something a little bit more than whatever the base model. There also has to be the law of uniformity, so sometimes we'll go to municipality and it's maybe not what I would have graded it, but that's it's set in the municipality, so therefore we gotta keep with that. Same.
So, I'm looking at a lot of these, let's just take one of them that's 600,000, all right? Now, what do you think that's gonna be assessed at?
If we were doing a reval this year, it'd be 600.
Okay,
We'll follow, the direct to us has been the Markarian hierarchy. So sale of oneself is the best indication of market value.
okay,
If that doesn't exist, you go to sale of comparable properties.
okay,
Tertiary to that, most often for commercial properties, is going to be any other valuation method, which tends to be cost or income.
okay,
So in November of this year, all of your commercial property owners will get a letter requesting income and expense. It's not by law required, but it does help us understand. The biggest comparative I have, or example, would be apartment buildings. I saw so much difference of market value based on sales versus in income. Understand income valuation why property owner would value their property less. Unfortunately, people are buying in the market that is above what that income approach supports. Unfortunately, the state is valuing. They're looking at that sale or that hierarchy, the sale of the primary valuation. So again, we do try to understand some of those differences. It helps us.
It's something like, I would guess, right, that a lot of these newer homes that are in that 600,000 plus price point, they probably will be closer to 100% because we're not seeing those sell for more.
What we wouldn't this year, if they sold this year, we're going to do
I mean,
600 minus
a year old, like if it sold 2 years ago, I mean, they haven't really changed in price.
We'll have to see what the sales.
And yet, you know, like.
yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I think what she's saying is that $600,000 house that sold for 600, they assessed it at 400 and some, right?
This year.
Yeah, this year. Then it'll jump up to 600,000 next year.
Yeah.
So even.
If I'm following how this works.
Yep. And so we'll have to see what the change was even this year to next year. So maybe that
Right.
600 becomes 615.
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. Keep pace with what the increase is.
But what we're doing is the sales price is one thing, but when you do the evaluate, to be fair, you bring it down to 30% to 70% of it. And then next year you move it up to what they pretty much paid for or a little bit over.
Yeah, and that's the confusing part sometimes. Let's say you finish a kitchen and somebody will say, next year. So we did increase them, but we could have, and most likely should have increased them more, but we were supposed to add 25,000. We might have only added 18. 18 because we reduced that by the ratio. So they feel like, well, I just got this increase, why am I getting it again? Part it's gonna be market, but also that chance of reduced.
Because a lot of these houses, what they're here is like about 200,000. They're selling houses for about 200,000 more than what they were taxed at. And that's when they're gonna get hit, the new people are gonna get hit.
Well, and I find, again, there's a lot of misinformation out there, like most often I get, well, assessments are supposed to be 10% under the market value. No, it's 100% under the market value. People that want a flip house and looked traditionally at what the, you know, what their old tax was, or, you know,
Right.
now it's not the same house, it's that plus. We get that a lot. And at different states, also, people move in from out of state. If you're a senior, other states do give concessions to seniors or tax freezes. Sometimes there are things, but it's very specialized cases.
Yeah, I get those phone calls too.
Yeah,
What do you have for your discounts for seniors?
sometimes those are the only cases I'll get people like for higher, because they will get a benefit of like a cash back off the tax amount. So one guy tried to argue with me that he had multiple kitchens and keep getting redone.
Interesting.
So I want to talk about the senior discount for our taxes.
You know, that's how some states lure people, you know, seniors, retirees.
Oh, sure.
Arizona has that.
Yeah, some do on property taxes, some do on income tax.
We have a lot of municipalities right by the border, so we'll get a lot of people from Illinois that are moving up, going. Perceivably, they feel it should be cheaper in Wisconsin to live in Illinois, but that was their forever house, so they buy one that just got a lot of renovations done. I see it so often, you know, that I probably bought it because of that tax history, but unfortunately, it's redone. And we didn't research what the tax rate was here, and it's not cheaper than where they were, right?
So then you look at like building permits, so like, let's say, my basement's not finished, but if I decided to finish my basement, I would have to get a building permit from the village.
Mhm.
And you would look at those and see, oh, now their basement's finished, so we're gonna assess.
Mhm.
Based on that.
Mhm.
Okay.
And there's kind of two documents that are most commonly referenced. There is the Wisconsin Property Assessment Manual, and then there's also the state statutes. So the statutes give some directive, but the assessor manual also gives some directive. Chapter 4 gives a grid of like each year, like a maintenance year versus a market update year, and kind of what assessors in general are allowed to do. In a maintenance year, it's like 7 items. So permitted work that's been completed, new construction, there's been a class change, something was commercial, now it's residential, maybe it's agricultural land, now it's residential or commercial, things like that. Those are things that you're gonna see a value change in any year. So if there's permitted work that's not been completed, we can change the value again, to make it reduced by the ratio. But we review that every year. Also, the other thing that gets reviewed every year is sales. So not just for this purpose, but when are a lot of things changing at time of sale. So something's been updated. Sometimes it's just updating the data so that when things are being compared fairly. Sometimes it's because somebody innovated something for the sale. So now that might be something, even though we're not setting it to sale, we're selling, maybe they renovated a kitchen, even though we might not see a permit. Now updating it. Or again, maybe they did some work 10 years ago, but they didn't take out a permit and now we're seeing it. So maybe we don't add as much as a new kitchen, but there should still be some value add. Maybe it was done 30 years ago and it sold 3 times since then, it just never got touched. I might not change any value, but I'm gonna change the ratings on it, so that is compared fairly.
Yeah, and that's where I think some people have conflict, because if you let your kitchen go to hell, you don't get any reduction. And we expect a kitchen, so to me, a lot of that replacement should be, hey, a house, you need a kitchen.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where I see it, and I kind of feel for that too, that, hey, you wanna keep your house up to date. So then you invest in it, so why should you be charged more because the kitchen, you need to have a kitchen, because you're not gonna get it, if you let it go to hell, you're not gonna get a reduction.
Well, and we get a lot of people that want to argue their sale value. Because when you buy a house, especially now, you buy it fast generally, you're not looking at every nook and cranny, and also pictures make it look generally nicer than it is. So, but when people are comparing themselves to the sale, most often you'll hear, well, that's much nicer. If I were to sell my house, I'd have to spend 30, $50,000 to get to that, but we take it with a grain of salt. Number one, we'll adjust for those different attributes, right? But number two, also, we don't probably be as nice peers. So if there's discrepancy, we don't just take it off MLS because there's, and I don't mean any disrespect to real estate agent, but there's less, accountability on those listings. So we won't just take MLS.
Right.
We'll go investigate what the difference may be. Sometimes they'll list most often like basement square footage in the square footage. We could identify in the picture, oh, that's a rec room down there. So again, we have it listed, just not for the gross living area. Or hey, that looks new. If we don't see a permit, we'll generally flag it for our field visit to try to go and talk to that property owner. If not, we'll probably take the best information, which is that MLS, and add square footage. And if they disagree with it, they can contact us about details. But sales help us also update that a lot too.
Christina, that's pretty possible. What if someone just ripped out their basement that's finished, and if I don't want to ever finish it, would you take that off as finished square footage?
Absolutely. We get that with flood. This is a catch. Again, things that people have told me that I don't know where it's, and it could have been true at some point in time, it's not necessarily now. Well, you can't count this as finished unless the ceiling is done like in a basement.
Mhm.
Not necessarily true. And most commonly now what we find is if you're finishing a basement, a lot of people aren't doing, at one point it was drop ceiling. Now a lot of times they're just spraying it with black paint and stuff. And it looks really nice. So some people go, you can't count it because the ceiling's not.
So the reason I ask is because in 2007, when we bought the house, we gutted the basement, and then the housing market fell on its face. And we're like, we're not going to finish it. So I asked the assessor during their door-to-door, everything was ripped out, it was bare, and she would not change the assessment.
Huh.
I was like, we have no
That's
plans.
a physical change to your property.
Yeah,
That should be an adjustment.
because we didn't end up finishing it.
You remember who that was?
2014. This is going to sound really shallow.
Haley,
The woman that had a terrible stutter,
Yeah.
Haley.
Haley.
Yeah, I went to war with her too. Actually came to the board here in Chandler.
Yeah, because there's a lot of floods that'll happen in basements, so a lot of times we'll get a basement permit and also, this is very common, a basement was never told to us that it was finished space, and then something happened to the basement, flooding or whatever, and so that really they now took out a permit to finish it, but never mind, it was finished. So we kind of have to talk over, again, that's great. How long ago was it? What kind of materials were used? Was it wood paneling, no insulation from the 70s, and now we're doing drywall and writing and things like that. So we'll get into some great spaces. Or, it was 25% finished before we moved it all out. Now we're finishing 50%. So kind of what's the difference there that maybe we should be adding? Again, that was in the details that we'll try to.
We took out the 70s wood paneling and the cork ceiling.
We'll also see trends on basement finishing in 1970s house might be different than a basement finishing in a 2025 house. Again, a different neighborhood or different municipalities. So it's not all created equal. We do have a kind of starting and price pointage sheet, but it really depends from there where we go. Like in Bayside, they have clay foundations. So a lot of permits are just 30,000 crack, fixing foundations constantly, not really renovating. So we try to get to know the area so that we're having to make some assumptions. A lot of basement or bathroom remodelers that'll focus on seniors and cost a lot just for a walk-in shower, but so a lot of times that bathroom remodel, but it really wasn't. So it's happening in that area.
And how long is the solar exemption from increasing value of the home?
Right now, if I see a solar permit, we're not changing any value. There hasn't been enough market data.
Because that's how the deal was, but it never said, is it forever or,
Yeah, typical things that I think people assume we're going to increase on, but we don't. Solar, generator, backups, and roof, re-roofs, some touch roof.
No.
That's a maintenance item. You got it.
I agree with that.
So we'll still visit depending, if you're doing a full house prepper, window siding and roof, that is a marketable value that is added, that's a full seal. But if you're just doing a roof, we might check on it, but you need that to maintain. Now, if I lowered you because you had actual leaking into your home and you have issues with water, we might set you down and now we're gonna track it, fix it, and then I'll bump you. But just a regular, if it's at the end of its useful life,
But, asphalt, usually shingles versus metal, if you went from shingles to metal, you went.
at this point, there's no market data to support that somebody is more excited. So sometimes it's just what information we have and how we've been able to decide that's the difference, and that could change, but. Because we'll get the argument of it had a nice like cedar shingle, but it's more expensive to replace. So it might look nicer, but it costs more. We most often are going to cut value difference on that. And we try to be fair if I did actually lower because there's some other issue, I do try to warn them. You're going to get a letter from us every year checking in on it, because once you fix it, you're the person that's going to get that increase plus stuff. Because there's always going to be people that just can't try it for whatever reason, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Absolutely.
We move on and we can eat.
Oh,
I'm all about the food. No, not you. We're good.
Well, there's food here.
Yeah, but I think you don't wanna go farther down the agenda.
Yeah.
Not much, I mean, there's not much to do here.
I think we normally get through almost to the end and then we just pause the recording. Yeah.
Certify all corrections or errors under the state law. There were none, correct? Okay. So. I don't think we need a motion for anything because there's no changes.
Right, yeah.
Discussion possible action to verify with the assessor that the open book changes are included in the assessment roll.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion to include that?
I don't know, you're the trained guy.
We haven't in the past. No,
Okay, I don't know,
It wasn't in the video.
okay.
just if I look at the minutes.
Allow the taxpayer to examine the assessment data. Consideration of request of waiver of the board of review hearing allowing property owners to appeal directly to the circuit court. We don't have anybody here? And consideration of request for waiver as required 48-hour notice of intent. So if someone came in tonight, then we as a board would have to decide whether we want to let them in and have that discussion tonight, or because they're supposed to give us a 48-hour.
Right.
One thing that's not on the agenda, but Bobby and I kind of talked about for next year is, would it be a good agenda item in July to have a mock board review, just for all the participants, all the board review people, so they can actually see, have somebody be a taxpayer, going through the process, going through the hearing. Because if next year is gonna be a bombshell, it may be a good idea.
We just do like
I'll
a
come in
workshop
and
kind of thing.
Citizen for you if you want it.
Take that role.
No, you,
Yeah.
that's mine, because I've got that 2007 story.
Yeah, you know.
There's some rage burning inside of me.
Right. Yeah, but, what was that? Bird Locker totally.
No.
So I think that would be a really good idea to have something, either, during a separate session or.
I guess it can't, I agree, as long, because I would be looking at making sure the procedure would do it right. So there's
Maybe we make everybody watch the video next year.
you think that would be a value?
It might. I don't know.
Depends
How much did they spend on actually running the hearing?
a lot,
Oh, did they?
27 minutes,
Was all just on the hearing?
just on the hearing. Well, it's in two parts. So they actually have a mock hearing, and then they have a panel talk about it.
Oh. Okay.
So, yeah, and it's all time segmented out, so, there's really 4 different sections, part of the hearing. The procedural stuff at the very beginning is, what we've already gone through, and then the hearing, and then having the board review then in open session, discuss in front of the taxpayer, what their findings are. And there's a procedure for that right in here. You just basically it's a script you follow.
Yeah, yeah.
And you mark up yes or no on that script. And then give your findings to the taxpayer. If it's denied, then you can give the taxpayer documentation. This is your next step. This is what you want to do. That type of thing.
Yeah. Well, might not hurt, but make us more efficient.
I have seen a lot of boards this year have that checkpoint and because normally the process is the property owner will give their testimony and the board and myself will have time to ask questions. I give testimony, the property owner can ask me questions, shut it down and deliberate. And part of that deliberation then is kind of like that checklist, right? So that it makes it easier to kind of say, did they supply funds? Did they blah, blah, blah. And I think that helps the property owner as well.
I think so.
Understand? And then Bobby will hand them the sheet of determination, whatever that is, and that will include next steps if they want to.
But it's been, since I've been part of this, and the board of review for I don't know how many years, we've never had anyone come in. You did years ago.
Yeah, it was, and I think you guys, it was on a couple of days, didn't it?
Yeah, and I had it for 1 year, because we've had Maddox, we've had Lester, we've had Maddox, remember Eastern Maddox?
I remember the challenge.
Yeah.
Remember that when I just
Yeah.
went to her house?
Yeah.
Because like people, because like, it's what you said earlier, if everyone's property value is going up, approximately the same, which I know doesn't exactly happen, but like your property taxes wouldn't change. Is it just that people don't know that and they get the assessment and like my house is going up, I'm gonna pay a bunch more, and so they come and
Yes.
like,
Some might be that, but a lot of them, and I don't know why, but it seemed like the range was from 30,000 to 200,000.
okay,
That's
pretty, okay.
yeah, there was,
There will be range.
yeah, and that's what got people upset. They would talk to their neighbors, yeah, mine went up 30,000. They go, 30,000 on it, mine went up 150. What's the story here? And then it's that whole thing of the worry, obviously, of the taxes, because some of that will affect taxes.
Right.
Yeah, it was not a good.
Yeah, and there's a lot of education that has to go to.
Yeah,
Because they don't understand that they've got to prove.
right.
Right, and we did lower some when they brought in appraisals, that's why I'm surprised when she said that. If they brought in an appraisal that said, hey, I just had an appraisal that said it was worth 500, and you're saying it's worth 550 or 560, we did lower, the 1 year we lowered quite a bit.
Yeah, so like I say, mine was lower, but not for that reason. I was able to show some of the comparables were not comparable.
In the video that I went through, they had that example. They had a person come and say, I had a market analysis done. And it came out, market analysis was done 3 years prior to the new assessment. And then the assessor looked at property that was sold within the last year that's comparable to this person's property. And that's what they used to verify the assessor's information was more correct than the market analysis from 2-3 years ago. Right. Where, prices change and.
And market analysis is different than our actual appraisal.
Correct.
Well, and I
So there
don't
you
look at any of them too, and we've changed a bunch. Yeah, it's just. Still. Well, and that's why I try to layer it in. Do start, people might be approaching you guys as a group, right? Stop scored, maybe nervous or whatever. That's why I'm peppering it with some information this year because I don't want to see people getting frustrated. There's the lower deals, right?
Yeah, but the biggest downfall was people would come up and say, my house isn't worth it.
Right.
There's no way I could sell it for that, right? Right. Yeah, but that's because they didn't know that, what the standard. So I think like you say, education is a huge part of this. To make these people feel like they have a shot.
Right.
Have you ever had anybody get a waiver to go, except for the business?
My favorite was he had listed his property for 200,000 more than what we said the value was. Lower. And I'm like, you just listed for 200 more. I'm like, no, we're not lowering that. But yeah, it was crazy. It's worth it. I'm not going to list you for it.
And I think B&B's been the only one that did away.
Yeah, they were the only one. Yeah, that did that. Yes.
Do you know if your attorney allows you to make up your own value as a board?
I
Make
don't
up our
know.
own value.
So,
assessment.
yeah, so sometimes, the majority, I would say, read the statutes of saying they can either go with the property owner or the assessor. They cannot determine a different value. They have to choose one or the other. There are municipalities that read the statutes to say the board could decide on the value, maybe, I mean, if the boards that will go, will split the difference. They're essentially having a value.
That's, in my case,
on that.
I don't remember, in my personal case, it ended up, the assessor and I came up with an agreement that the board agreed.
Right.
That's kind of how it worked.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it worked that night.
Yeah, the directive that we've made a big change at by legal counsel has been for this year, and I'm sure we'll go forward until given another directive. Because in the past, let's say the board, new information has been presented. We used to say, with new information presented, the assessor would recommend X as a value. That has been told that we would be perjuring ourselves, we have signed the role, we now have to support that value. So.
Really?
So that leaves us in an interesting space. So my language generally might be, one could imagine, had we done that,
Yeah.
potentially one could. It just gives.
Goes counter to what your job is to get the value, right? And all of a sudden, new information comes that you didn't have. You should be able to adjust it and then do a error correction or something.
We're scolded big on that language until we no longer do that. Even if information is coming.
So if we had a hearing and we got to step F, hear defense by village assessor, like you would stick by whatever number was present.
Legally, I have.
Yeah, whatever came in before first. Okay.
I have a board on Wednesday where we probably didn't get delivered 80% of the objections. So we make every effort possible to check every objector before board. Because again, out of respect for the board, if there's something before, we'd like to do that. So like there is 3 of the 10 cases for Wednesday, essentially on their side. So my material will indicate, hopefully, to get the board understanding a certain way legally. I have to support.
I guess that's true, but if someone works with you guys before the roll is signed and provides that information, then okay, so that's probably just the cleanest way to handle it if you end up in that situation where you don't is deal with it sooner than
The other 7
getting all the way.
are over there.
When you do that, the open book process in May,
Yeah, so open book is right after you get that notice. We will normally have a stated time legally for the statutes, it has to end 7 days before the board. So generally, and this is something I go for it. At that point, if it's 7 days out, I don't sign the rule until I get here.
oh, okay.
So we can change up into that point. Sometimes I'm bringing materials to the board.
Okay.
So talk to them.
But that's the time you want, people should be, if they're having a problem.
They'd have to file an objection. So normally we'll encourage them to file an objection at that point so that then we can open up that window to continue talking.
Okay.
I would say it is not that I want to encourage people to file, but I absolutely encourage people to file because we're human, we make mistakes. If we didn't call somebody back or an email got missed, they should have signed up for board. They can always withdraw that objection. But at least it was filed. So that 48 hours is made. Or maybe maybe we made an adjustment, it's not what they wanted, and they're kind of hemming on over it, and let's file that objection that leaves that availability to you. We have plenty of no-shows that either, but at least you're not badly to say I didn't file on time and this is
Right.
why. Because they have to give a good reason why they did not file. Otherwise, so you would hear, they can't go into their testimony. They have to just state why they didn't file. And then you guys vote, is that good cause? If that was good cause and you vote yes, then they can have a case. If not, you don't get to hear any of the reasons.
What if they file and we don't come to agreement, then they automatically make their case?
I get 48 hours.
What's that?
I get 48 hours if I wanted to.
No, I'm saying in May, I do the filing, we can't come to agreement, so then I automatically can make my case. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Again, not that we want to encourage everyone to file right away.
Oh, no.
But I want to err on the side of property owner getting their rights, right? But that is something I think that was confusing for people, because that was also, I think we had a lot of tribal knowledge happening at our offices, so let's we reread the assessor manual, and then we have calls on as a team to make sure our process is how the manual is read. So when we saw that at board, our open book has to close 7 days before board, the recommendation then was they had to file an objection, so that allows us to open up, because it's no longer an open book, but then we can at least talk with them, and then we can still change until the roll is signed, and then they can always let back that they're withdrawing their objection. I just hate it when people, well, I was waiting on something, and you're like, don't, I'd rather be filed.
So there is nothing else in the agenda for us to go over before we get to 21.
That's when 7 o'clock happens.
That's
Right.
7 o'clock.
So then at this time, I'm gonna say I'm gonna pause the recording. We will not discuss any, I guess, you guys have any more questions for the assessor before we stop talking about assessment stuff? All right, we'll pause then. We'll do no official business, no decisions, and then we'll come back. We have resumed recording. While the recording was paused, no official business was discussed and no action was taken.
All right, so there were no hearings, there was no public that came by and had questions or concerns about their assessment. We did not have to deliberate any hearings, and we do not need to prepare any or prepare any notices of decisions. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, do I have a second?
I will second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.